योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचाम् मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि आबाहपुरुषाकारं शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणं सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिं गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर् गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः हरिः ओम्. In the previous session, we looked at Sutra 3.52, Kshanataৎkramayoho Sanyamat Vivekajam Jnanam. And we looked at quite a detailed bhashya, the commentary on that sutra. And then we saw that on doing this Sanyama, on the Kshana, the moment, and the Krama, the sequence of moments, a special kind of Jnanam that is termed as Vivekajam Jnanam comes forth. And we discussed what that is. And we have a few subsequent sutras that are also going to speak about that. Guruji, in the commentary, his commentary on this particular sutra, also beautifully brings out his insight into the importance or the unique aspect of yoga in the ability to direct or channelize the awareness to the present moment. He talks about in the asana, he talks about it in terms of the self, etc. But he talks about the dangers of distraction, being in another place or being in another time, and so on. And elsewhere also he has spoken about how concentration, for example, on the interval between the inhalation and exhalation and inhalation brings a certain awareness of the concept of time, which is different from just the passing moments and which builds a certain purity, a certain set of samskaras. I just wanted to also bring your attention to Guruji's fascination around this sutra, as well as the notion of how the yogi looks at time and how yogic practices and the intervals between moments can sublimate us from being trapped in time, so to speak. There is also quite a bit of technical aspects to this sutra and the commentary, which we covered in the previous session. So I won't try to summarize the technical aspects here, but refer you to the previous session for that. But that particular bhashya, it ended with tatascha vivekajam jnanam pradurbhavati. So from the sanyama on the kshanas, that is the moment, the smallest unit of time, and the sequence of them, the krama of them, there is a certain sakshatkara, direct realization. And from that sakshatkara, a certain jnanam, which is vivekajam jnanam, pradurbhavati. So that emerges. And with that, the previous sutra and the bhashya ended. And next we will be looking at the next sutra. As a preamble to the next sutra, Vyasa says, Tasya Vishaya Vishesha Upakshipyate. So the Vivekajam Jnanam that was referred to in the previous sutra and the bhashya, what is the Vishaya Vishesha of this? So every Jnanam has a certain Vishaya, which is the object of knowledge. Jnanam can be sort of slightly simplified translation is knowledge or cognition. No, always there is a question of knowledge of what. So that is the topic or the object of knowledge. Now there is a specific aspect of the Vivekajam Jnanam that is not commonly applicable to all other kinds of Jnanam or all other kinds of cognitions. So that is Vishaya Vishesha. What is the specific aspect of this? So that Vishaya Vishesha is going to be explained in the next sutra. That is what Vyasa is saying when he says Tasya Vishaya Vishesha Upakshipyate. So then comes the next sutra 3.53, which says jātilakṣaṇadeśairanyatānavacchedāt anavacchedāt tulyayostataḥ pratipattiḥ. So this is a long sutra, so let us understand what the terms mean. jātilakṣaṇadeśairanyatānavacchedāt. So there are three terms here being combined together. Jati. So what is jati? Jati it is described as gotvadi. So it is a type of thing. Okay, so for example, gotva means cowness, horseness, animalness, elephantness. All of that is jati. So it is also sometimes referred to as akara. So it is a certain type that is common to multiple individuals of that category. So that is jati. So every cow, we could say, has a certain similarity from which we identify the cowness. That is the jati. Lakshana, that is nila pitadi. There are certain characteristics. So if there are multiple things, you can say, oh, the blue one or the yellow one and so on. Nila pitadi. So that is a characteristic marker. Lakshana. Desha. Desha means the position where it is. So jātilakṣaṇadeśairanyatānavacchedāt anyatānavacchedāt. So if there is no anyata means a difference. Okay. Anyata anavaccheda means the certain entities, they cannot be differentiated, they cannot be aspected by these three things, jati, lakshana, desha. So there is no way to differentiate between them either by their type or the characteristic or the position. Then they are all similar. So tulya. So tulyayostataḥ pratipattiḥ. So in this Vivekajam Jnanam, what happens? If there are, let's say, two things that cannot be differentiated either by jati or by lakshana or by desha, there is no way to differentiate because let's say the jati is the same, the lakshana is the same, the desha is the same. In that case, the things that are seemingly equal or identical, how do you differentiate? So with Vivekajam Jnanam, that can be tataḥ pratipattiḥ. Those can be properly understood and differentiated. So that is the specific aspect of Jnanam that is only available through Vivekajam Jnanam and otherwise unavailable. So the background here is, as it is said, padarthanam vedahetavaha jātilakṣaṇadesha bhavanti. So normally for entities, how do you differentiate them? Through these three things, jati, lakshana and desha. So either the jati itself is different or the lakshana is different. So one is a cow, one is a horse, that is a jati. Lakshana means one has a certain mark, maybe the shape of the eye, the shape of the horn, etc. The lakshana is different. Or the position is different. Otherwise they look the same, but one is standing here, the other one is standing over there, so they are different. Now if they cannot be differentiated or aspected in this manner, so there is simply no way to say which is which, or in fact that these are two different things. Then how are those to be differentiated? So there is absolutely no way except the Vivekajam Jnanam that can come through the exalted Samadhi that is available through yoga. And that is the specific Vishaya Vishesha. That is the specific power, the specific capability, the specific aspect of this Jnanam, Vivekajam Jnanam, as opposed to every other type of Jnanam. So that is what the Sutra is saying, and we'll look at the Bhashya next.
So Vivekaja Jnanam, Viveka Jnanam, these are the concepts with which we must be clear. It is rendered a discriminate, discernment, discrimination, distinguish. But distinguishing between what? Generally, we are able to distinguish between white and black, contrasts, thick and thin, contrasts. Or there are differences, and therefore we are able to distinguish, such as apple and orange. So that's how we understand the discrimination on our plane of intelligence, that we distinguish between the two contrasts or two different things, two dissimilar things, and we do not consider the distinction between two similar things. And here in Samyamatmaka Siddhi, the Siddhi which is going to come out of the Samyama is not something like you will distinguish between white and black and red and blue, or apple and orange, or banana and mango. So that needs a unique faculty where there are no differences, yet the difference is there. A simple example, if I wear a shirt which I wore yesterday, you would say I am wearing the same. I would also say I am wearing the same shirt. So that's a fact, that what I wore yesterday I am wearing today. That's only a fact, not the reality. Because that was the same shirt yesterday and that's the same shirt today, and there is a difference which goes unnoticed. We can't differentiate between that material that was yesterday and that material, the same material that is today. Because we know that this shirt is going to go towards oldness, rottenness, etc. After some time, we will say that that shirt is no longer there, because it is constantly heading towards its annihilation, its distinction, its disintegration. However, we are not able to identify that. So I say, and you say, the shirt that I wore yesterday, I am wearing today. The shirt that I wore the other day, I am wearing the same shirt today. Despite the lapse of times, by such certain days and certain weeks and certain months and certain years, it cannot be the same because it is constantly changing. So such changes need unique faculty. Common faculty, normal faculty will not be able to identify. Therefore, we say this is that and that is this. What I saw yesterday, I am seeing today. But there are constant changes taking place according to material sciences, material philosophies. Material is said to be constantly changing, called parinama, parinamavada. So we have considered this parinama and changes which are taking place moment to moment. Dharma lakṣana avastha parinamas were considered by us. So there is a constant change in material. However, these changes go unsighted, uncognized, unrecognized. Whereas the Vivekaja Jnanam or Viveka Khyati or Viveka Jnanam that philosophy is talking about, which is a special faculty function, and that too which is coming out of Samyama, it is not distinguishing between the crow and sparrow, black and white, red and blue, circle and triangle, but totally a different basis for distinction. And this is what is needed in spiritual pursuit when Viveka Jnanam is given such an importance. It is to discriminate between the two seemingly similar or appearing as one, not two, yet we have to distinguish. So it's a special faculty function that comes. So the Vivekajam Jnanam that was introduced by Vyasa in the previous sutra, by Samyama on Kshana and Tatkrama. Therefore, this special ability would be appearing intuitively. And that is now being described in this sutra, jātilakṣaṇadeśairanyatānavacchedāt, tulyayostataḥ. It is when the things are similar, we cannot be finding basis to distinguish. Like there are two pins, and the two pins appear to be the same kind of thing, everything same. We cannot distinguish which was brought first and which was brought second, or which was carried in right hand and which was carried in left hand. We can't distinguish it. And we say these are two similar pins, identical pins. However, they are two different material objects. They cannot be identical, but they seem to be identical. So the Viveka Khyati is also discrimination between the Sattva and Purusha. It can be argued Sattva is Prakriti and therefore inert, and Purusha is sentient. It is not an easy basis to distinguish. When it comes to Prakriti Purusha Viveka, Sattva Purusha Anyata Khyati or Viveka Khyati, it is not such kind of distinction and discrimination. So, there are so many things which are tulyaha, or jati desha lakshanahi anyata anavacchedāt. So that's how Vyasa is commencing to explain this enormous, incredible, awesome faculty that the yogi develops because of the samyama mentioned in the previous sutra. So now he is going to enumerate the very content of this siddhi, that Vivekanya Jnanam can make distinction between the two indistinguishable by empirical process, by sensory process, or by common man's intelligence process. We either say they are the same or they are one. But, however, little deeper insight will tell us, little critical observation will tell us that there is certainly basis for difference, and there is definitely a distinction as well. So this is a fascinating topic that is being commenced. Otherwise, we say that this is the flower that I saw yesterday, I am touching today. This is the fruit that I saw yesterday, I am touching today. This is the fruit that I saw yesterday, I am eating today. No, the fruit that was there yesterday and that is today is not the same. With little critical kind of investigation into it, it is certainly different. Now, this difference goes unnoticed, and it doesn't matter for us in our mundanity of life. But going in pursuit of higher realities, it really matters a lot. And therefore, this fabulous faculty comes to yogi who has this samyama attained, which was mentioned in the previous sutras, as a very, very fascinating subject and fascinating commentary that we are going to look in. Okay.
Yeah. So before we begin on the commentary, we have to remember that there is a certain context in which this is happening, which started from Sutra 3.49, where we had seen Sattva Purushanyata Khyati Matrasya Sarva Bhavadishtatritvam Sarvajñatritvam Cha. So from the Sattva Purusha Anyata Khyati, okay, now I want to elaborate on these terms, but the purest state of Chitta and the Purusha by Sanyama on the knowledge of the difference between even the purest form of the Chitta and the Purusha, it was said in 3.49 that there is a Sarvajñatritvam, complete knowledge of everything. Then in the previous sutra, where we had seen Kshana Tatkramayoho Sanyamad Vivekajam Jnanam, we had said, okay, there is Vivekajam Jnanam arises, but why is that related to Sarvajñatritvam? And at that time I had provided the context and explanation where it had said Sarva Vastu Pratikshanam Parinamate Iti Vikaritaya Kshana Rupameva. So essentially everything is changing all the time in the creation. So when there is a sanyama on a certain kshana and a sequence to the next moment, the changes happening in the entire creation falls in the purview of that Sanyama and falls in the purview of the yogi. Therefore, the direct realization is of each and everything. And when it is done for Kshana in general and the Krama in general, there is complete knowledge encompassing each and every entity and past, present, future. So that is how we had related the Sarva Jnatritvam with a Kshana Tatkramayo Sanyama. And then that was Vivekajam Jnanam. So now we continue with that context and background of that complete knowledge and realization coming from that Sanyama. To now moving where this sutra is talking about Vishaya Vishesha, what is specifically available here that is not otherwise available at all to cognition, to mental faculty in the form of knowledge. So that is what we are looking at. So once again the sutra is saying jātilakṣaṇadeśaihi, if two things cannot be differentiated by jati, lakshana or desha, the position, there is only one way. Through Vivekajam Jnanam, it can still be differentiated. How is that? What is that? That we'll see now as part of the Bhashya. So, Vyasa begins, he says, Tulyayoho desha lakshana sarupye jati bhedo anyatayaha hetuhu gauriyam vadavayamiti. So now he is giving examples of out of these three things, jati, lakshana and desha, if two things are common, are same, but one thing is different, we can still differentiate and understand that these are two separate things and here is the difference. Okay, so the first one is this, tulya yoho, desha lakshana sarupye. So, two things whose desha, the position is same and the lakshana characteristic is same, but if there is a jati bheda, then that jati bheda or the difference in the jati or the type, that becomes the hetu, that becomes the sort of the cause to differentiate. For example, this is a cow, that is a mare. It's a gau yam, vadava yam. So let's say when somebody looks, they happen to be in the same position, either at the same time or at the different times. Okay, and the lakshana are the same, there may be the same color or whatever, but one is a cow, the other is a mare. So it is clearly differentiable by saying, okay, this is a cow, that is a mare. So the jati becomes the cause of differentiation. The next example is tulya desha jatiyatve lakshanam manyatvakaram kalakshi gauhu swastimati gauhu viti. So again, if the desha and the jati both are in the same region, they both are of the same type, but the lakshana can be different. For example, this is the cow with the black eye, and this is the cow with the swastika drawn on it. So, kalakshi gauhu, swastimati gauhu. So even if the jati, the cowness is same, and they are in the same, located in the same place, but you can differentiate by saying, okay, this is the one by the lakshana. This is the one with the black eye. This is the one with the swastika drawn on it in a certain color. So that is kalakshi gauhu, swastimati gauhu. Now, again an interesting one. Dvayoho amalakayoho jati lakshana sarupyat desha bhedo anyatvakaraha. So, imagine two amla fruits. Amla, I don't know what it's called.
Embellic fruit.
What fruit?
Embellic.
Okay. Embellic fruit, I just saw it's also probably known as a gooseberry, Indian gooseberry. So let's say two amla fruits, they're spherical green fruits. So now they are the same type and they are the same characteristic, color, shape, size, etc. Then how do you differentiate? The desha, the position is different. So you say idam purvam, idam uttaram iti. Oh, this is the one. It's differently, variously translated. You can say this is the one that comes first. This is the one that is the next, the other one. Or it may also be purvam, uttaram can be translated as this is the one on the east side, this is the one on the north side, etc. But to the position, you can say, okay, this is this amla, that is the other amla. So dvayoho amalakoyoho jātilakṣaṇadeśairanyatānavacchedāt deshavedo. So it is where they are situated, where they are placed. That is the way to differentiate that. Now Vyasa brings an interesting point. He says, yada tu purvam amalakam anyavyagrasya ज्ञातुः उत्तरदेश उपावर्त्यते तदा तुल्यदेशत्वे पूर्वम् एतत् उत्तरमेतत् इति प्रविभाग अनुपपत्तिः. So now what is he saying? He's saying, however, so the continuing this example of the two amalakas, if you, now you had said this is the Purvam, this is the Uttaram. This is the one place either east and north or the first and the next. Now, Purvam Amalakam Anyavyagrasya Jnatuhu. So the knower, the person who is watching or looking, is the Jnata, he is the knower. Now, if he is Anyavyagraha means he is busy in doing something else. Okay, focus somewhere else, busy doing something else. If the knower is for that moment focused elsewhere, busy doing something else, essentially not looking, at that time, if one were to pick up the Amalaka that was on the Purva side and place it in the Uttara side, okay, where the other Amalaka was earlier situated. Now, their position is also same. They are located in the same region. Now, how is one to differentiate, saying this is the Purvam, this is the Uttaram, this is that Amalaka, this is the other Amalaka? How would you know if when someone is not paying attention, you pick up the one which is in a different position and place it close to the other one? Now, both have the same jati, both have the same lakshana, both have the same position. How is one to know which is which? Okay. So that pravibhaga anupapattihi. Now differentiation, or let's say the first one was removed and the other one was inserted in its place. How would you say, oh, now that the other one has come here? How can you say that? So pravibhaga, the differentiation cannot be done. Pravibhaga anupapattihi. Now what do you do? Now, asandigdhena cha tattvajnanena bhavitavyam ityatah idumuktam tatah pratipattir vivekajnanāt iti. So can we stop by saying, okay, in this case it cannot be differentiated? So Vyasa says, no. Asandigdhena cha tattvajnanena bhavitavyam. So it should be possible through tattvajnana, proper understanding, asandigdhena, without doubt, to be able to say, this is this one, that is that one. So that happens through vivekajam jnanam. So Vyasa beautifully creates a certain scenario which is a very daily life, normal worldly scenario. He says, in this case, how is one to say this is this Amalaka, that is that Amalaka? And we should not escape by saying, okay, in that case it is not possible. He says, no, it should be possible. Because through the right understanding, complete understanding, one should be able to differentiate. Asindagdena tu tattvajnanena bhavitavyam. It should be possible, it should be doable. So how can that happen? Then Vyasa says, that pratipatti, that proper knowledge, comes through vivekajam jnanam. So he says, vivekaja jnanāt. Katham. Now he himself asked that question. How will that happen with vivekajam jnanam? What is that magic that comes, that one can say that this is this Amalaka which was on the Purva side now has been placed in the Uttara side, and I know that. How can that happen? Even with vivekajam jnanam. So, Vyasa says, Purvamalaka sahakshana deshaha Uttaramalaka sahakshana deshat bhinnaha. So if you consider the previous Amalaka with the time and the place, the moments of time that it has gone through and the place, and the Uttara Amalaka, the other Amalaka, with the moments of times associated with it and the places associated with it, that is Sahakshana. desha. And for similar thing for the Uttara Amalaka, then there is a difference. Uttara Amalaka sahakshanadeshat bhinnaha. So if you consider the Amalakas with the, in some sense, in the time series, at this time it was here, in the next time it was here. So the time and position, if you take that together, because Jati Lakshana are the same, but if you look at their path through time, then there is a difference. Deshat bhinnaha. Techa Amalake Swadesha Kshana Anubhava Bhinne. So how can you characterize them? You say these Amalakas that seem identical are however different. In what sense? Swadesha Kshana Anubhava. The experience that each has had, their own experience in terms of time and place over time. In terms of that experience, so that is a Swadesha Kshana Anubhava. Swa means their own, Desha means position, Kshana means time, Anubhava means experience. So this whole experience through time, in terms of where they have been, is different between the two Amalakas. This is Techa. When the Sanskrit vary the brevity, with one word it says Swadesha Kshana Anubhava Bhinne. So that is how the two can be described. Okay, in that sense they are different. Anya Desha Kshana Anubhavastu Tayoho Anyatve Heturiti. So, how can you differentiate the two? The differentiation comes from Anya Desha Kshana Anubhavaha. So the Desha Kshana Anubhavaha, in this place at this time, that experience is different between the two, and that is the Hetu, that is the marker, that is the cause of differentiation. Anyatve hetuhu iti. Now, etena drishtantena, with this example. So, firstly, before we move on, this is a particular example of Amalakas that was given. So, it is time to take a pause and absorb this. Anything that is seemingly undifferentiable. Okay, and here the example of the Amalaka fruit is taken. They look the same, they are of the same type, and when you were not looking, earlier they were in two different positions, but now they are placed so that the first one is in the same position as the second. Now how are you to differentiate? So Vyasa brings out the fact that in terms of their experience through time, the two are different, and that is the example to keep in mind. So after this, we'll move on to what Vyasa says next.
So, as I said, it's a fascinating kind of faculty of knowledge or ability for knowledge that yogi has. And he gives certain examples and tries to explain as to what this sutra is trying to say. So first he gave the example of Gauhu and Vadaveyam. So these are two distinct animals, and we can distinguish, although they might be in same location, they might be perhaps of the same color, maybe both are black, etc. But then the species are different, and therefore we can distinguish. Then he mentions the example about both animals are cattle, cows, but one is Kalakshi, that is black-eyed, and the other one is Swastimati, having a swastik mark on it. So although both are black, both are cows, both are of similar size and dimension, yet there are attributary aspects which can help us distinguish between the two. And therefore we are able to distinguish between such two, all the similar and dissimilar things. They are similar because they are cows, cattle, but dissimilar because of attributes. Then he comes to the example of Amlaka fruit. And suppose the two Amlaka fruits, the Amlik or Indian gooseberry, suppose they are identical in size and shapes, in appearance. Appearance-wise, there is no difference between the two fruits. But yet there is a difference. One comes from one direction, another comes from another direction. And suppose they are placed on a table, and you are critically looking at the umbilic fruit which has come from right side and which has come from left side. So you have your advertence, you will be able to distinguish. But suppose I induce digression in you for a moment and shuffle, then either you will be confused or you will be faltering in identifying that this is from east and this is from west, etc. So a thing to be noted here, that suppose there is a rose plant, and rose plant has 2 rose flowers on it. We think both are same because both are from same class. Moreover, both are from same plant. However, the 2 roses have distinctions on several bases. One is bloomed at one point in time, second has bloomed little later or earlier. Even both have blossomed at one and the same time, yet there is a difference because this is one flower of the plant and that is another flower of the same plant. Moreover, in our gross perception, we say this is the rose plant. It has given the flower today. It will give the same flower tomorrow. So the roses will be coming on that plant every day, and we say it is the same flower. It is impossible. Little critical, analytical thought process will tell us it is certainly not the same. There are certain differences. Although not appearances differences, appearances similarity might be there, but essential differences are there. So the same plant will be bearing rose flowers for several days and weeks and months. And we think there is the same flower that is coming on this plant. It cannot be same. It is same but not the same. It is same because of the same class, coming from same plant. It is rose and rose and rose from the same plant. However, there is a difference. So if rose plant cannot be giving the same flowers every day, this will be understood by little critical thought process that it cannot be the same. But in our grosser worldly processes, we take it is the same. The plant is one, and then it is giving roses every day, and therefore there should be no distinction. It should be the same rose. So it is same, no doubt, but also not the same is equally right. But for worldly process, this distinction is not necessary. And moreover, when it goes to subtler plane, which Vyasa is going to explain in the following part of the Sutra, still there are distinctions. As I gave the example of pin, and suppose I fetch a glass of water from a room which is on the right hand side, I fetch the water from a room which is on the other side, and I place on the table, you say it is same water. It cannot be the same. The Kshana, Krama and Desha, they definitely influence, and they are definitely causes of distinction, which is not noticed by naked faculties of our eyes and our intelligence. So for us, we say there is no difference. But however, there is always a difference. Little critical observation will tell us that there is a difference. And yogi is able to now identify this. Because of this faculty that he has developed, he is able to distinguish between two indistinguishable, or two are appearing to be one and the same. He is able to distinguish between the two. They are not one and the same. They are different. So this is marvelous faculty of Viveka Jnanam, Viveka Khyati, or Vivekaja Jnanam, brought out of this discrimination, or Viveka Jnanam, that is being explained. So it's a fascinating thing that where we are helpless in distinguishing, yogi is able to distinguish very easily. That's the unique faculty that yogi develops. That's why he has that samyak jnana, tattva jnana. His knowledge plane is definitely higher and more essential. It is because of the faculty that yogi develops, which we are not endowed with such faculties because of our empiricism and because of our normal faculty functions in place. And we might have little higher faculty functions, but they are not capable of doing what yogi is able to do by this. Okay.
Yes. And just to clarify, when we say the same plant, there are two roses. So it's like we also know there are two roses. So we are not going to say it is the same rose. But if one is placed in the place of the other, and they are, let's say, identical, is there a way to distinguish which is which? And that is the Vishaya Vishesha, where the Vivekajam Jnanam, because the yogi has a perception that combines the Deshakshana Anubhava. So the history in terms of time, this particular entity has been in these different places at different times, at different forms or whatever. That complete experience is available to that knowledge in the form of sakshatkara, and that is the unique aspect of vivekajam jnanam, which is otherwise unavailable. And this conception, this concept has certain implications in terms of the underlying theory and the underlying understanding of the world, which Vyasa is now going to describe. Okay. So Vyasa says, Etena drishtantena, through this example, Paramanoho tulyayostataḥ Purva Paramanu Desha Sahakshana Sakshatkaranat Uttarasya Paramanoho Taddesha Anupapattau Uttarasya Taddesha Anubhavo Bhinnaha Sahakshana Bhedat Tayoho Ishwarasya Yoginaha Anyatva Pratyayo Bhavati iti. This is a long sentence. So Vyasa is moving from the Amalaka fruits to the Paramanu. So Paramanu is the minutest entities which we refer to as atoms. So even though later what was known as atoms turned out to have smaller particles and so on, here the conceptually the smallest unit of an entity is an atom, and here it is known as Paramanu. So two Paramanus in that case also, when they have the same jati and lakshana, and in a certain case, if the desha, the position is the same, yet, says Vyasa, the first Paramanu has a different trajectory in terms of its experience in time, where it is, when, in what, and the second Paramanu has its own different experience in terms of time. So the Desha Sahakshana aspect, time and place combined over time, is different. And therefore, a yogi who is a Ishvara, so it is Ishvarasya Yoginaha, that is a reference back to the Sarvajñātritvam, Sarvadhisthātritvam that we had seen in the first sutra in this series. That is why the yogi is referred to as Ishvara here. So Ishvarasya Yoginaha, he is clearly able to see that these two Paramanus are different, and this is this one, that is that one. So he is able to identify the two Paramanus clearly, because he is able to, his knowledge encompasses not just the two Paramanus, which in itself is an exalted knowledge because they are extremely sukshma and the minutest thing. But the knowledge also encompasses how the Paramanu has been in the previous moment, the moment previous to that, etc. So the entire path that combines time and space is part of his Vivekajam Jnanam. So all of that knowledge is there in the yogi. So the yogi is clearly able to say this is this Paramanu, that is that Paramanu, even though as such there is really no way to differentiate them. Now Vyasa is pointing out a flaw in the another darshana. So he says, apare tu varnayanti. Now this is also very interesting. This is others, however, describe. They say, ye antya visheshaha te anyata pratyayam kurvanti iti. So this is referring to the Vaisheshika system, and in general the Nyaya Vaisheshika system. Now in that system, it is said, though that system is based on reasoning to a very great extent, that darshana is based on reasoning, rational thought, etc., based on the different ways of valid knowledge, how to infer, and so on. So as they go on trying to understand the padarthas, padartha is usually referred to as a thing, as an entity. But if you look at padartha, it is the pada means any term in language. Artha means what it denotes. So now if you start looking at what every linguistic aspect denotes, so that is padartha. So as the system, the Nyaya Vaisheshika system tries to understand the various padarthas, it comes to a postulation of paramanu. But then the question comes, they say there are multiplicity of paramanus, there are many paramanus. But then how is one to differentiate between those two? And because differentiation has to be there, the moment we say there are many, they postulate a certain thing called Vishesha. So that the Vishesha becomes a guna of each and every paramanu, and that is a differentiating aspect, which is, they say, inherent in each and every paramanu. So that is not something that can be explained in terms of anything else, because had it been possible to explain in terms of anything else, they will not postulate something new called Vishesha. So because it cannot be explained in terms of anything else, they postulate a new concept called Vishesha. They say everything, every paramanu has a certain guna that is called Vishesha, which then is a factor to distinguish one from the other. And due to that guna called Vishesha that they have introduced in their system, the system is called Vaisheshika. So Vaisheshika is come from the unique conception of Vishesha that is there in the system. And then the Nyaya Vaisheshika are the allied darshana, so they are often described together. So Vyasa is now talking about them. He says, Apare tu varnayanti, ye antyaha, antya means the minutest, the paramanus, their differentiation, antya visheshaha te anyata pratyayam kurvanti. So at the final analysis, this particular thing called Vishesha, which is the guna that has been postulated, that is the one that causes the anyata pratyaya. The knowledge that these are different, there are many, that is coming from this thing called Vishesha, that is inherent, that inheres each and every atom. So that is the Vaisheshika system. Now tatrapi deshalakṣana bhedo murti vyavadhi jati bhedascha anyatva hetuhu. So Vyasa now counters that. He says tatrapi, even in the paramanus actually, he says deshalakṣana bhedaha. Okay, so desha and the position, the difference. Murti vyavadhi jati bhedascha anyata hetu anyatva hetuhu kshana bhedastu yogi buddhigamya eva iti. So he says the differentiation is not coming from anything called, there is no need for such a thing to call Vishesha. The Desha Lakshana Bheda or the differentiation, Anyatva Hetu is Desha, the position, the Lakshana characteristic, Vyavadhi, which is the intervening space, the fact that they are separately situated, Jati, and the Bhedas in this aspects is the cause for differentiation, and the Kshana Bheda, the difference in all these characteristics with time, okay, that is yogi buddhi gamyaha eva. So that is available only to the yogis. This is, even though that it is not necessary to have something called Vishesha, because if you factor in the experience across time, then it is the fact that things are different is very clear. However, that knowledge is not available to anybody except the yogi. Because from Vivekajam Jnanam, everything, all knowledge across time is available together. So yogi has that faculty, yogi has that knowledge, so the yogi is able to differentiate. So then, if there is a way to differentiate, then there is no need for to postulate anything called Vishesha, a separate concept of a separate type of guna called Vishesha. Because the moment you take the yogi gamya knowledge, in which the past history of time and the experience with that can be combined with the knowledge of each and every atom and entity, then the differentiation is clearly, directly available. And there is no need to say it is because of something special called Vishesha that it comes about. That is what he is saying. And then he concludes, Ata Uktam Murti Vyavadi Jati Bheda Abhavat Nasti Mula Prataktvam Iti Varshaganya. So he is quoting from another Acharya called Varshaganya to say that there are multiple things on how this has been described. So one, there is no fundamental differentiation that is required because that is available from this yogic knowledge which combines the experience with time for differentiation. Even when there is no difference in terms of murti, vyavadi, jati, bheda, etc. And then another aspect of this quote is in the Mula Prakriti, that is the Pradhana Prakriti, there is no need to say there are multiple Prakritis for each Purusha because there is no Prataktvam, there is no differentiation in terms of Murti, Vyavadi, Jati, Bheda. So it says Yatha Pratikshetragnyam Pradhana Bahutvam Nyaya Viruddham Murti, Vyavadi, Jati, Bheda Abhavat Pradhananam Prataktvam Eka Purushartha Drishyavat Anupapannam Evam Paramanunamapi Mulatve Prataktvam Nopakalpate. So it is just like one doesn't postulate that each and every Purusha has a different Prakriti of its own because there is no differentiation in terms of Jati, Bheda, etc. So we say, okay, there is only one Prakriti. Similarly, there is no need to have an inherent differentiation between the Paramanus. There is nothing inherent. It is just that there are many, and if you factor in their experience through time, that they can be differentiated as long as you know the differentiation through time, which is available to the yogi through the Vivekajam Jnanam. So this is what the Sutra and the Bhashya has very fascinatingly put forth, that the Vivekajam Jnanam is of this caliber, that the complete understanding of each and everything has been illustrated by sort of putting forth certain puzzles of the Amalaka fruit or the Paramanu, and then saying, okay, yogi can definitely differentiate that, and then further extrapolating that concept to say that even at the very fundamental level for the Paramanus, there is a differentiation that can be established through the yogi's jnanam without having to come up with some concept of a Vishesha that is inherent in each and every atom. So that is what the Sutra and the Bhashya says.
So the point is that indistinguishable things are distinguishable. It is for yogi. This is what is that Vivekajam Jnanam is. Say for instance, if I take seeds of various botanical species, plants, and I smash them, and then I pick up small particle from each pounded seed, one will not be able to distinguish that this is plant A powder, powder of seed, and that is B or that is C, because they seem absolutely identical. So suppose I have burnt matter, several matters have been burnt, different matters are burnt and reduced to ash. How are we going to distinguish that this ash is from matter A and that, or thing A, and that ash is from thing B and thing C and thing D? Ash is ash for us. We cannot distinguish. However, we know that ash has been turned out from 3, 4, 5, 10 different objects. So there is definitely a distinction. A wood burnt, ash turned out. A metal burnt, ash turned out. One is wood, the other one is metal, and then there are several metals and several woods. But when it is reduced to ash, we have no basis to distinguish. But whereas there is basis for distinction theoretically, because these are 10 kinds of woods and ash out of 10 kinds of woods, or these are 10 kinds of metals and ash out of 10 kinds of metals. There is a basis for distinction, but we cannot distinguish. Yogi is able to distinguish by his inherent faculty developed by Vivekajam Jnanam. That's the fabulous thing. That is why there is less chance of yogis to falter, and we have more chance of faltering and very little chance that we would be right. That's why we say it is human to err. So we will be faltering with our naked faculties, naked intelligence, naked senses. Realities cannot be divulged and realized. Whereas yogi has now inherent power because of his siddhis, because of the samyamas that we have spoken about. He is able to distinguish between what otherwise cannot be distinguished. Even given to microscope, etc., given with all those instruments, we will not be able to distinguish. It needs definitely an intuitive faculty, intuitive mystic faculty, which is by samadhi. And that's why the sarvajñatrutam, etc., yogi is able to clearly see the differences where we can't cite differences. Things are similar, they are not similar. Yogi is able to identify the dissimilarities. For us, the things are one and the same, but for yogis, he is able to have that scanning, intuitive wisdom, whereby he will be able to distinguish absolutely without any fault. That's his Aishwaryam, which just now you heard about. That's the great glory of yogi, that he is able to do that. And this is one of the reasons why it happens. It is because of this Vivekajam Jnanam explained in this sutra. Okay.
Okay. So we'll stop here for today, and we continue along this theme for the remaining two sutras of Vibhuti-pada. So let's recite the slokas on Guruji and end the session for today. Vaijñānikam pravaktrutva asaneshu kalavidam yogābhyāse ca tattvajñam vandeham sundaram gurum yoga vriksho hi lokesmin yat preranena varditah yogācārya guro tubhyam sundarāya namo namaha. Thank you.
Namaskaram.